With the release of Sonic X Shadow Generations in October of 2024 came numerous fan-made music. This is nothing new to the Sonic fandom, with countless other fan-made songs being created over the years. FAKER by McGrath is the first ever Sonic fan song I've ever listened to. I'm still a pretty new fan, only recently getting into it in 2022, so I'm not very familiar with any other fan-made music, which is why I was so drawn to this particular song. It captures the vibes of Sonic music with the melody and lyrics while still being original. I wanted to do a quote-unquote deep dive of this song because there are many lyric choices that I do enjoy and there are many that I don't. This video will be split into two parts: characterization of Sonic and Shadow and the lyrics. But before we start, I guess I'll introduce myself. My name is Moxie and I mainly post fan art of Sonic the Hedgehog as humans though, because I cannot for the life of me figure out how to draw them as hedgehogs. But I do post other fandoms here and there whenever I'm hyperfixated on something. I wanted to start posting sort of video essays or rants about certain topics that interest me, because I like to share my opinion and I can't just keep talking to my friends about this at this point. I'm hoping to post more than once a year like I have been, and I hope I can give you good enough content that you stick around. Anyway, on to the first part of the video. The song starts off strong with a little interaction between Sonic and Shadow.
Long time no see, Shadow! The blue hedgehog of all places. Ugh.
Just from these lines alone, I can assume this takes place right before the rival battle between Sonic and Shadow for the Yellow Chaos Emerald.
I found you, Shadow!
The blue hedgehog of all places.
This is very in character for both hedgehogs, with Sonic sounding cheerful and Shadow being a little annoyed. It's only later on when Sonic is done singing his first verse, Shadow says,
"Sorry I didn't hear that over my overwhelming PTSD and trauma." What?
Is where I have an issue. Although Shadow can be grim at times, I feel this is out of character. Yes, he has been through a lot, and reliving those moments isn't helping with his attitude. Even Sonic sounds confused when Shadow says that. I personally found this line to be a little cringe, and I've never really thought joking about this stuff was super funny. However, I think it would sound better if he was being sarcastic instead of serious. Him saying something like, "Yeah, I can't hear you over my PTSD and trauma," with sarcasm instead would be silly. There's another interaction between them that also doesn't feel in character for Shadow.
Come on, why not have an adventure? Why don't you take a hike? But it's even better together. I'll hit you with my bike, but we're best friends forever. Don't look left and right. Gee, how come you always gotta find me? You don't know that you don't like me.
I know that they'll playfully tease each other, but this makes it sound like Shadow is very irritated by his presence. Not saying that he isn't usually annoyed with Sonic's antics, but it reminds me a lot of Shadow the Hedgehog. In that game, a lot of his actions rely on his anger, because he was confused with who he is and what he stands for. In the true ending of the game, Shadow vows to put his past behind him, meaning he moves on and lets go of his needless anger, which is what confuses me when people write Shadow like this. Sonic Generations takes place long after Shadow the Hedgehog, so he wouldn't have this reckless and edgy anger. Instead of having him wanting to permanently get rid of Sonic, he could try pushing him away. This would tie into a line that Sonic says later on. I can't fully blame the songwriter and anyone else who does write him like this, because in most of the modern games, Sonic Team writes Shadow as a sort of stereotype of himself. It's as if they completely forgot about the true ending for his game and just rolled with him being the emo version of Sonic. Shadow is obviously much more than that, and it shows in Shadow Generations. Yes, Shadow can be irritated with Sonic, but they aren't enemies. They are rivals. In many of the Twitter takeovers, Shadow has expressed that he has respect for Sonic and what he does. He considers him a friend. On the contrary, Sonic is written very game accurate. It's pretty hard to mischaracterize him, but that doesn't mean it hasn't happened before. In this song, he always finds the positives and tries to push that onto Shadow. It doesn't really work though because of how Shadow's written in this, but he still tries anyway. However, by the end of the song, he gets irritated with Shadow and gives him the same attitude he was given. Overall, the characterization of Sonic is written authentically, mostly, while Shadow could use some work. I'm hoping that with the release of Shadow Generations, Sonic Team will start to portray Shadow more accurately compared to a lot of the older iterations. And I hope that one day they explore the complex emotions of Sonic because it's very hard to read what he's actually feeling. In the first part I mentioned a few lines and lyrics, but now it's time to actually go in depth in some of them. Before I do get into that, I wanted to mention that when I first listened to this song, there were many times when it was unclear when Sonic or Shadow were singing. I'm not certain which of the two vocalists were singing at certain parts, because from what I can tell, they sound very similar. I was only able to fully understand what was going on once I watched the lyric video. Anyway, in Sonic's first verse, he makes two references to older Sonic music, with him saying, "Can you feel the sunshine?" a reference to Sonic R, and "Live and Learn," which is a reference to Sonic Adventure 2. Duh. I'm not entirely sure if this is also a reference or I'm just pushing it, but he also says, "We'll find an escape," which could be referring to Escape from the City from Sonic Adventure 2, but I'm not entirely sure on that one. For the most part, Sonic's lyrics just sound like him if he wasn't singing, even when he's going back and forth with Shadow. Like mentioned before, Sonic gets annoyed with Shadow by the end of the song, and if I was Sonic, I probably would too. There's another interaction between them that I don't enjoy that much, both because it doesn't suit them and it made me cringe a little bit.
You know what we need?
A gun.
No, a good old-fashioned trauma bond.
I can make trauma with a gun.
Alright, you don't want to talk about it.
I know that it's like super cool Shadow used a gun in his game, but he doesn't use them outside of that game. He realized that humans are important and he shouldn't kill them, which is why he never uses one again. So I don't understand why he would say this. I can kind of see Sonic saying this, but at the same time, I can't. When people write Shadow where he only thinks violently, it strays away from the character development he had in his own game and in Generations. Sure, Shadow can be a lot more aggressive when it comes down to saving the world, where he's willing to sacrifice people or places by any means necessary, but that doesn't mean he would do reckless things like that. Shadow thinks with his head in these situations, which contrasts with Sonic's ideals. Sonic thinks with his heart, which is why he wants to save anyone and everyone by any means necessary. He is willing to sacrifice himself if it means everyone is saved. This is why they have a rivalry. Shadow can be mean, but that's only because he's using logic. Moving on, Shadow straight up insults Sonic, calling him out on how he always sees the positives.
Act direct, you never react. In fact, react. It's more so that you just lean to distract. Wait, protect every bit of tension that sways your way. Subtract any opposition that entered the fray.
This feels both in and out of character for Shadow. He does like to scold Sonic to get him to think straight, but this was literally unprompted. Sure, they were going back and forth and calling each other Faker, but what provoked this? Shadow also points out with the quote, "Stop pretending you have it all together," implying that Sonic is putting up a front to make it seem as though everything's okay, which is why Shadow calls him a faker. I like that he points this out because no matter how much of a hero you are, you still go through a lot. Sonic may have memories brought up that were happy, but that doesn't mean the whole experience was. As an example, Sonic Unleashed. He went through a great adventure, went to many different places with Chip, made like a new friend, and then he dies at the end. Chip dies at the end. He loses a friend, which is probably why Sonic calls Shadow out for never changing.
Remain the same, you never seem to change. In ways it pains me when you always try to estrange.
They both seem to call out each other's weaknesses, however, Shadow instead goes for insulting while Sonic tries to understand him to a point. Although I do think Shadow could snap at Sonic like this, I don't think this is accurate. Shadow would never try and bring him down like that. He does respect him and their friendship to an extent. That's why I enjoy Sonic Prime's rendition of their friendship, but that's a whole other topic for a whole nother video. It may look like there are a lot more things that I dislike about this song than I actually like, but that's not entirely the case. It wouldn't be in my on-repeat playlist if I didn't like it. To be honest, it's easier for me to put into words what I don't like and what could be improved, compared to saying what I actually do like about it. I promise you, I honestly enjoy listening to this song and I think everyone did a great job on it. When it comes to listening to music, I never really hear the lyrics, I more or less just hear it as music, as if the words have no meaning. Not that I don't actually hear the words, it's more like it goes in one ear and out the other. It's not until I literally read the lyrics do I understand them. If I hadn't written out the lyrics to this song, I wouldn't have understood it as deeply as I do now. The words selected are playful at times, but also have deeper meaning. You can tell that even though they have a few joke lines in there, they understand the characters to a degree. This song is more than just hopping on the hype of Sonic X Shadow Generations. It's exploring their dynamic. Even if Shadow is mischaracterized here, it still shows the similarities and differences between the two. By the end of this video, I hope you can see that as well. Now, I want to thank the 3 people that watched this entire video and all my friends that watched this. I do have big plans for new videos, but they might take me a while because I really suck at writing essays. Just know that they will also be Sonic related because Sonic is life at this point. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in a few.